Welcome to SB405D Project Management. My name is Felicia Frida Aiden Aqua. I'll be taking you through this unit 3, Project Scope Management. We're going to focus our discussion on session 3, which is on Project Scope Management Activities 1. By the end of this session, you should be able to discuss Project Scope Management Plan and explain how to collect requirement functions of the project scope and describe how the project scope is directed. So let's jump into business for the day. So when looking at project scope management, our focus here is actually looking at the process of creating the project scope plan. And we know the project scope plan is a document, which is a written document which describes how the project scope will be identified, validated, and then will be defined, validated, and then controlled. And so when we're looking at our project plan, this is what usually goes in there. What have we defined as our project scope? How is it going to be validated? How is it going to be controlled? All of this goes into what our project plan. And so the key benefit of this process is that it gives us some sort of direction or guidance when it comes to what our project. And so the project plan is very, very key. They said if you fail to plan, then you're planning to fail. And so you need to be able to do this futuristic activity to help you work towards the future as well. So the scope management plan is a composite of the project management plan that describes how the scope will be defined, developed, monitored, controlled, and then verified. Let's go in to look at the scope management plan. It says the development of the management plan and the detailing of the scope actually begins with analysis of information which is contained in the project charter. So the last approved subsidiary plans of the project management plan, historical information which is contained in the organizational process, assets, and other relevant environmental factors are all looked at in there. In the planning stage, you actually want to gather as much input as possible from all of your project stakeholders, and we've made mention of our internal, external stakeholders, our primary and then our secondary stakeholders as well. So you need to first gather enough information, enough input from them, which will help you decide on the documents you need to work on in defining, managing, validating, and controlling your project scope. So the scope management plan also provides information on how you can handle unforeseen circumstances throughout the project, because when you are planning, you tend to do a bit of contingency planning as well, just in case therefore perhaps something happens. Plan B, plan C, plan D should take into effect. And so these would also help deliverables to help us know how deliverables will be accepted and how you produce some other key elements, which is including your work breakdown structure or a scope statement. Yes, so sometimes you can just do all of this and represent it beautifully in diagrams as well in there too. So your scope management plan details how the scope is defined, is developed, is monitored, is controlled, and verified. These are 5 key things you need to keep in mind. So your project management plan, which is your written document, should detail how your scope is defined, how it is developed, how it is monitored, how it is controlled, and then how it is verified. These are 5 key things you need to take notice of. And the requirements management plan, that details how requirements will be analyzed, documented, and managed. So the project manager chooses the most effective relationship for the project and document this approach in the requirement management plan. So yes, we need the scope management plan. We also have the requirement management plan, which is going to help us know the various requirements we need for the scope to be able to work with. Then we need to obviously collect the requirements. We've done a requirement management plan, which is spelling out what we need. Now we need to be able to collect these requirements. So business requirements describe the higher level needs of the organization as a whole, such as the business issues or opportunities and the reasons why the project has been undertaken. There is a reason why you are doing that project. We need to be able to talk about those issues and collect information relating to that. And so stakeholder requirements describe the needs of stakeholders or the stakeholder groups. We have solutions requirements, which describes the features, the functions, characteristics of the product or service which we are going to produce for us to be able to meet these stakeholder requirements. So yes, the business has its own requirement, things you're looking out for. The stakeholders have their requirements. The solutions we are bringing to solve this need of the stakeholders of the business also has things to also look out for as well. We also have functional requirements, which describes the behavior of the product. And so examples include processes, data, interactions with the project. We also have the non-functional requirements, which are supplementary functional requirements and describe the environmental conditions or qualities required for the product to be effective. We want to make more from the inputs we put in there as well. Then we have transition requirements, which is used to describe temporal capabilities such as data conversion, training requirements, which is needed to transform from the current state to the future state. So this is just looking at when it wants to change from current to the future state, the things we need to put in place or have in place to be able to do that. Then we have project requirements, which is looking at actions, processes, and other conditions which the project will need if they're going to be able to achieve their objectives or the set targets. And we have quality requirements, which is looking at the conditions or criteria which is actually needed to be able to validate the successful completion of the project deliverable or fulfillment of any other project requirement. And so like we've made mention of, these are the key things we need to look out for. We need to look out for the business requirements. We need to look out for the stakeholder requirements, solutions requirements, the project requirements, the transition requirements. These are very, very key in there as well. So first and foremost, what is a project scope? We've looked at a lot of the scope management issues, but what is project scope? We're saying that you need to define your project scope. If you're not able to define it, how then do we do the monitoring? How then do we do the controlling to ensure that we are meeting these objectives in there? So define project scope is a process of actually developing a detailed description of the project and the product. This is essentially about creating your scope statement. So your scope statement is going to tell us what you are really doing. So let's say you are going to do X. Okay, so there's a problem. The problem is we need a lecture theater. Now yours is to what? Yours is that you're going to build a 25 lecture theater which has some office spaces in with a conducive environment to be able to give students or the university the opportunity to educate students in a very modern atmosphere or modern setup in there. That is what you want to do. You need to define this clearly. And when you have it in a document, that's what we call the scope document, which is defining what you want to do. And obviously you may end up adding just a few of your deliverables, what you think you're going to get them at the end as well. So the key benefits of this process is that it describes the project, service, or result boundaries by defining which of the requirements collected will be included and excluded from the project. So for some, like this lecture theater thing I'm talking about, in someone's scope, it can add that we're just going to focus on just building this 25 lecture theater and all the setup and things, but we're going to exclude furniture and fittings. So that means that yes, we'll give you the structure, we'll give you the landscape and everything, but then we will not take care of furniture and fittings. Some would also bill and then give you that in their scope everything is going to be inclusive, and so they're going to give you furniture and fitting and all those ones. Some can even tell you they'll give you what do you call it? They'll do the landscaping and all those things. Some will say no, landscaping is not part and so we're just going to focus on this. It is very good to remember what we learned in the earlier session, that this has to be what unambiguous. It has to be clearly stated so that it helps gives us that direction for the project. It is very, very key in here. So the project statement, like I made mention, is a written document which describes the project scope, the major deliverables, assumptions, and constraints. So in building these 25 lecture theaters, there are going to be major deliverables. One key deliverables will be the structures they are going to provide for the lectures. Another could be, well, if they are not even going to finish it, at least once they are building, maybe there should be some washrooms and things for it. There should be office spaces in there. The landscaping should also be serene. We said we're going to do modern lecture theaters. Modern lecture theaters should have how do you call it, connections for issues or for things like projectors, speakers, and all those ones. Those are key deliverables. In doing this, you need assumptions as well. What are assumptions? Assumptions are those things that have to be present for your for what you've planned to actually hold something. So a key assumption would have to look at inflation or even price changes. So for some projects, they may even quote in prices, quote their prices in dollars, because the key assumption is for us to be able to give you this modern 25 lecture theater at X cost or at X amount, then it means that prices of goods and services should be relatively stable. If prices of things are shaky, then it's not going to be possible to give you this within this particular time, within this particular price. Another assumption could even be based on the weather, because if the weather is stable, you can build this 25 lecture theater within the shortest possible time. But just in case the weather gets a lot of rains and things, it can slow the construction work. So assumptions can be as small or as large or very big, but you always need to have these underpinning assumptions in there. There are things that have to be in place for it to hold. And sometimes even something like labor unrest and all those things can actually affect it. And we are in a country where even when they increase petrol price, everything else can move up. And you also have to have constraints, the things which like your boundaries. Those are the things you're working on. Those are the things you're not working on. These are the things which potentially you'd have to check or look out for, else you'd have problems in there as well. So your project scope statement documents the entire project, which includes the project, product, or service you want to render in details, as well as deliverables for the project. And it provides a common understanding for project stakeholders as well. And we said it shouldn't be ambiguous. It should be as clear as possible. And it contains explicit scope exclusions to assist them with their expectations. So these are the things we are going to do. These are the things we're not going to do. So like I made mention in my example, that you can exclude maybe furniture and fittings. In Ghana, most of the construction they do, sometimes they just exclude furniture and fittings, which is another cost for the organization to do that as well. So in defining your project scope, we've made mention that first you need to describe the product you want to come out with. There should be an acceptance criteria in there. There should be deliverables, which I've made mention of, project exclusions, things we're not going to work on, constraints would have to also be looked at. So limiting factors that affect the execution of the project. So example is your budget, and all those ones can give you a constraint. These are things that can limit you in there as well. And assumptions and underpinning things that should hold for your project to be able to go on. Project documents would obviously have to be updated. Don't do one document and expect it to be same throughout the project. Things will change, and as things changes, you'd have to be updating it from time to time. So in this session we base our discussion on 3 activities in the scope management, project scope management, which is a plan scope management, the collect requirements, and then the direct scope or the defining of scope as well. Thank you for your attention. I hope you did learn a lot, and I'll see you in the subsequent sessions. Thank you.